Rima Eid, welcome to the Not So Stupid podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Coach Jumha.
Oh, thank you for being here, client Rima Eid. This is a pleasure. So you have been with me. You've been working with me before Stupid Fit even existed.
Yes,
We worked together on a personal training level,
we did.
and you have like a really long backstory and a really amazing transformation. I'm
Thank
sure
you.
people that have followed the page for a while have seen it a couple times at least. So why don't you give people a little bit of background about yourself, your story, what you've been through, who you are, and where you're at right now?
Okay. So my name is Rima Eid. I'm 34 years old. I'm a mother of two. And basically, how my fitness journey started was 6 months after I had my second child. I was getting ready in the mirror and I didn't like what I saw. So I took a picture actually, and it's the one that I used for my base transformation picture, which came, I think, a year and change after working with you actually. So I just didn't like what I saw. I knew that I wanted better for myself. And, I won't lie and say that I had like a ton of confidence because I didn't. There was definitely some self-worth type questions in my mind of, am I going to be attractive to my husband? Am I going to be viewed as beautiful by society? Am I looking the best that I could look? And so for me, the answers were no. So I knew I needed to do something to change that because I wasn't happy. So I joined Export and I started taking some of the classes. And initially, when I was working out alone, I would just do cardio and abs, which I'm sure is a very common thing that people do. Because I had the impression that if I just did a ton of cardio and did a bunch of ab workouts, I was going to get this flat stomach and all the proportions are going to look great. So obviously, I started to learn a little bit about strength training while doing the classes, and I met you and other trainers. And then shortly after that, I actually broke my arm. Not my arm, I should say. I broke my elbow, the bone in my elbow, and I wasn't able to work out for quite a bit. And then that's when I actually bumped into you. And you're like, hey, you should come to my class and I'll customize it for you. Even though you have an injury, I can help you. So that like was really great of you because I really didn't think that I was going to be able to do anything. And you kind of like helped me through that, which, sorry about that, we got cut off, which kept me going. And eventually, you approached me as a coach and you're like, hey, have you ever considered personal training? So the truth is, I had never considered personal training, partially because I thought that it was for people who wanted to be super ripped. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm not trying to be an athlete, I just want to look good. That was part of it. And then the other part of it was I didn't think that I could afford it or that it was like something that I had the money for. But then, of course, sitting down with you and, actually hashing out the details of like what my goals were and, like how the cost would really end up being, you pretty much encouraged me and made me believe that it was going to be an investment in my health. And it was one of the best things that I ever did. It was a great investment in myself and I don't regret it. And obviously, since I've still been working with you, it's something that I fully believe in.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it is a really common thing, like you said, to kind of go through that progression of going through cardio and abs because I'm unhappy with what I see in the mirror and I want to change that. I think this is the best way to change it.
Yeah.
And you kind of hit a point where you are stuck and you're not sure where to go. What do you remember as being your biggest struggles before and during the early phases of, actually working with me as a trainer? What was the biggest things that you realize now in hindsight that held you back entirely?
So one of the biggest things I think I struggled with was nutrition. And I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm perfect at it now because I'm not, but I have a way better understanding of it now. I was under the impression that in order to have a nice body, you couldn't eat carbs. It's this ridiculous notion.
Yeah.
Uh, And then I would say the second thing for me was not knowing how to work out properly. Just because it's very intimidating going into a gym, especially as a woman. You see all these people lifting and, you don't know what you're doing and you don't have a proper at that. If you're not working with a coach, you don't have a proper program or you don't know like what muscle groups you should be hitting when. So you're just kind of aimlessly walking through the gym, just doing machines.
Mhm.
And, even then you don't know if you're doing them right. So I think that that was one of the biggest things that I struggled with initially, was, how to lift, and nutrition and how to eat. So finding out that I could eat carbs and still shrink, and
Right.
then grow when appropriately, was a huge thing that I, gained from working with the coach.
Yeah, no, for sure. And now you have, I can imagine, I want to hear it from you, of course. I don't want to speak for you, a different view of yourself, I'm sure. Because you mentioned earlier that at 6 months after your second kid, you didn't like what you saw. You didn't have a lot of self-worth. You didn't have a lot of self-confidence. Um, where along the lines did you finally gain that? And what was the process to get to that point like for you?
So it's interesting because you would think that the obvious answer is me losing weight is what made that happen, but that's actually not true at all. Losing weight and having a certain body size or certain jean size definitely is not the key or the answer there. For me, it was committing to things and following through, and then eventually seeing the results of my commitment. And me seeing that I can do something that I didn't think I could do. So, for me, it was like, for example, doing a pull up. I never thought that I could do a pull up, never thought that I would have that strength or, anything like certain, deadlifts, certain weight, like, oh, I could never lift past 200. But the fact that I could build myself, over time, of course, to get to that, it's just so rewarding. So it's not even actually how I look. How I looked came with it. And I mean, that's great. But believe it or not, I'm actually 15 pounds heavier now than I was when we started online training.
Hmm.
But I love my body now because now I can see definition. I'm strong. I fill out in the right places. So it had nothing to do with my actual weight or my actual like body. It had to do with what I could do and what I was capable of as a human and as a woman and as, all these different things.
Hmm.
One of the biggest things that I thought was going to hold me back was having kids and being a mom because I don't know why in my brain I had put it in my head that since I was older and I had kids and like, whatever, like I had passed that point where like, it's not for me. It's for someone who's young and athletic and whatever. And that was completely false. And now it's like great because my little boys see me doing things. My son saw me doing pull-ups and now he wants to do pull-ups because he wants to be like me. So like, it's just cool to be able to build that strength, but not just like, physically, but mentally.
Hmm. No, that's amazing. I really like that. A you're a very tangible role model to your kids now. You don't have to think about whether you are or not.
Yeah, it's
That-
great.
That's awesome. So now, going through, you mentioned how um, we obviously transitioned from in-person training, and then once I stopped in-person training, you joined me for online coaching. What were you skeptical about prior to starting online coaching? Because I think for a lot of people that have done it the old-fashioned way, I guess, when you have a personal trainer, you have someone like right there, and it feels like something's actually happening. Obviously, I'm not physically there with you anymore when we go through our nutrition coaching check-ins or our training adjustments or anything like that. What were you skeptical of before, and post that? What was like your main first breakthrough that made you realize, man, this is actually going to work out for me just fine?
So my main concern was that I wasn't going to make progress. Just because I felt like, oh, if I don't have someone here pushing me to do it, I'm not going to progress or I'm not going to lift as heavy. That was my
Hmm.
main concern. So one thing that I've learned is ask people for help. Like if you wanna do that really heavy set, ask someone to spot you. And I mean, of course, this was easier pre-COVID, but even now with COVID, if you know, ask someone and you guys maintain a decent distance, people are usually willing to help you. And then also, even though you're not there physically, um, you specifically as a coach have made me feel like I can come to you. So if I feel like, you know, maybe I'm not doing a lift properly, first of all, you provide great videos because that was the other concern. So the first concern was not progressing. The second concern was form and making sure that I did it correctly. But you provide videos. And if, you know, a video is confusing, you have notes. And if the notes are confusing, I could still text you and say, hey, Jumha, you know, like, I'm doing this and this is how I look, you know, is that how it should be? And you're usually like, okay, do this or adjust that. Or, you know, if I want to lift heavy, you're like, put these, you know, safety bars like for squatting or whatever. And I feel a lot more confident doing what I'm doing alone. So having that, and then having the accountability and checking in with you weekly and going through, you know, the weekly forms and kind of having that, keeping that in mind also keeps me always accountable and always looking at what I'm doing so that I can reassess and fix whatever needs to be fixed and then progress. So even though I didn't think I was going to progress, I've progressed. I've been able to lift heavier. My form is great. And I mean, you know, I feel good with the lifts, even though I don't have you there.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And then second part of that question, what was like your first major breakthrough for that? Like that made you feel like this
I
is everything's gonna be great.
I think there was a short period of time that I stopped like measuring and taking pictures, and I thought to myself, "Oh my God, you know, like I've let myself go." And then I did the measurements and the pictures and everything, and I was like, "Wow, I'm actually doing fine." So it was just kind of this thing where I'm like, I can do this, you know. And I think it was a really good moment of just like removing self-doubt, you know, like you got this. You don't need to have someone with you all the time. You are capable of reading these programs and following these steps, and you can make the difference.
Mm-hmm. And that, like you said earlier, following through on your ability to do that and actually executing just gave you
Yeah,
that much more confidence and
absolutely.
went that much further for you. So now, you know, we alluded to your progress a couple times, and you've made like two major transformations. You've lost a good amount of weight, and then you've gained a good amount of weight,
I
right?
do.
And I want you to share actually to everyone listening the more specific things that came from that. So the actual numbers that came from it, anything you want to share for both transformations, whenever you're
So
ready.
yeah, so when we started, I was at 175 pounds, and I believe I was a size 12,
How
I
tall are you,
believe.
by the way?
Huh?
How tall
Five
are you?
three, five
Five
three.
three. Okay.
Yeah. And by the end, like the first, I guess you can say transformation, I was at 125 pounds. So I lost 50 pounds,
Man.
and I was like a size 4. Which was great.
Mm-hmm.
And I was super happy. I got skinny, you know, like, and you know, this is a little cultural, and I mean, a lot of Arab are gonna relate to this. We've always been taught as women specifically that the smaller you are, the more petite you are, the more attractive you'll be. And I mean, to an extent, I think that's a societal in general thing, but like
Mm-hmm.
Arabs are super hardcore about like, oh, if you're skinny, you're gonna be, you know, cute and pretty.
Right.
Um, so I mean, I did enjoy being smaller. However, now going into transformation part two, you know that lean look that we all want, like those nice chiseled abs and like a nice back and some cuts on your arms. Well, you're not going to get that when you're super tiny, right? And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I wanted that. Like I wanted that look. So for me, the next phase, which we worked on, was the building phase, the building transformation. And so something that was a huge mental challenge for me was the concept of gaining weight. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that, you know, for a lot of women specifically, it can be tough to intentionally eat more and intentionally try to gain weight. But it's definitely worth it. So since then, I went from 125 and I'm currently about 140. So I've gained 15 pounds, and that's been over the slow progression of maybe like a year and a half to 2 years total.
Hmm.
Um, I'm still a size 6, so I'm not that big. And the reason I'm a size 6 is because of glute gains, which I'm totally happy with and totally okay with.
Hmm.
So my waist is pretty much the same that it was when I was at my leanest. But just I've grown in terms of like lats, glutes, I'm growing in all the right places.
Hmm.
And that's mostly because of smart programming and obviously good nutrition. So the second part of the transformation was learning how to eat to grow. And we're not just talking about eating junk, but eating, I mean, junk is okay every now and then for sure, but eating properly to fuel your body and training properly to grow, so that is a whole new set of challenges and a whole different approach, but it's been super rewarding.
Nice. So now I really want to hear your perspective on this because I think a lot of women can benefit from trying to gain muscle and
Yes.
building muscle, and
Yes.
that will help them to their goals a lot better. Again, you said it was counterintuitive because you've been raised to think that skinnier is better, a lower number on the scale is better, but you like your body more now at a higher weight than the lower weight it was. What was that transition of understanding like for you, and what was the process of accepting that like for you as well?
So that's a process I'm working on every day. I'm not going to pretend I'm perfect at it because I'm not, but I have definitely made like leaps and bounds from where I was. The first thing is realizing that some of that upbringing or some of that is toxic. It's not actually good for you to be super super lean. I mean, hey, some people are lean and some people want to be lean, and that's great. And I mean, who doesn't want to like feel their best, right?
Hmm.
But I think learning that it's okay for me to eat and not feel guilty about eating, and learning that it's okay to take more space um, is perfectly like it was something that was hard to accept at first, but then as with time, me breaking down those toxic mentalities has really made me so much happier as a person. Like I feel good to be able to eat. I feel good that I know like I'm in control of growing my body the way I want to grow my body. I'm not eating in an unhealthy way, but I am embracing the fact that I can eat what I want pretty much within reason. As long as I'm,
Hmm.
staying on top of my macros, staying on top of my portion sizes, I'm not overdoing it. I'm happy that I'm able to have what I want and still, make the progressions that I want to make. And that was a slow process. It wasn't easy. It took a lot of, learning. It took a lot of acceptance and love of
Hmm.
yourself. It took a lot of, not feeling validated by other people's opinions, because everyone's going to have an opinion on how you should look. But also, having positive role models. Like, don't follow people on Instagram who have these ridiculous, like, fake bodies or these fake, or for example, as a 34-year-old woman, I'm not going to look at like an 18-year-old girl who, has been a, stick figure and then worked on glutes for like a year and has this huge,
Hmm.
butt and a tiny waist. I'm not going to like
Yeah, it's not
compare,
a fair
because that's the other
comparison.
thing. Well, and the thing is, I've heard an expression, comparison is the thief of all joy.
Hmm.
And it's 100% true. Do not compare yourself to anyone, because you have no idea. Like, you guys are not the same people. You have no idea what their life's like. Your life is completely different. Your body is completely different. Sometimes I look at girls and they're like taller than me. And
Hmm.
I'm like, oh man, I love their body. But then, it's like an unrealistic view because I won't be that height.
Right.
So there's a lot of self-love and self-acceptance that comes with this.
Hmm.
But once you start to actually feel it and you start to feel like gratitude for what you do have, it just makes you so much happier as a person. And I think that that's really what we want, right? At the end of the day, we believe that having the smaller body and having the, smaller pant size is what's going to make us happy. But ultimately, that's really not what it comes down to. It really comes down to us loving ourselves and accepting ourselves and feeling good about ourselves. And that ultimately is what makes us happy. And I think that that's what most people want, is to feel happy and to feel good.
I love that. That was a great last note. So now, um, I got a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, who would you recommend this program to?
So I would recommend it to someone, single moms, well, not single moms, specifically women, I should say women, who want to look good, but are maybe afraid of lifting. I think that I've learned a lot about lifting through your programs. I've learned a lot about nutrition and how I can use that to my benefit. And I think there's a lot of women out there who are doing the whole cardio abs thing, and it's not getting them the body that they really want. So I
Mhm.
really feel like they would benefit from this. I have a friend who I'm actually kind of sharing your program with. She was a coworker of mine,
Mhm.
and she's already down a pant size. She's lost like over 5 pounds, and we've only been doing this for a month.
That's awesome.
And and she's not even doing like the specific nutrition tracking. I'm giving
Mhm.
her very general things, but just doing your program. And she asked me, she's like, like, where do you get your programs and stuff like that? And I told her, I'm like, I have an online coach, and he provides me with custom programs to help me. And, that's someone who I think that's a type of person who I think would benefit.
I like that. And now, obviously, when people hear these kind of things, and they like the idea of it, but then when it comes to actually committing and following through with it, there's always hesitation. There's always some worry, right? And you mentioned that you experienced that when we first started working together on a personal training basis, not as an online coaching basis. What would you say to someone that is hesitant, and is on the fence about committing to this for themselves?
So, what I would say is it's an investment into yourself, and you only get one body, and you have to take care of it. And if you are hesitant into investing into your own self, it's everything else it's all connected, right? So, I think that your happiness, your overall quality of life, even your relationships can be impacted about how you feel about yourself. So, what better way to invest your money than into yourself and your happiness and your future?
Hmm.
So, for me, your choices are do nothing, change nothing, and stay unhappy, or invest a little bit of money and time and an effort into yourself and be tremendously like happier.
Hmm.
And sure, you might not see it right off the bat because it's really hard, right? You're not necessarily going to get instant results, and it's a work in progress. It takes time,
Hmm.
but over time, because you actually just made a post about this, about how there are small changes that compound over a long time.
Right.
And that's exactly it. Over time, these little things, these little goals, these little wins that you're hitting ultimately make a huge difference. And you can look back and say, man, I've done so much for myself. And it can be in as short of a period as 6 months,
Hmm.
right? Where you can look back and say, if I had done this, if I hadn't done this 6 months ago, I would still be here.
Hmm.
So all it really comes down to is, do you want to invest in yourself? Do you want to be happier? Do you want to make a change? Because if the answers are yes, then there shouldn't be any hesitation. You should just go for it and start living it. And
Hmm.
the moment you start living it and embodying it and you become it is when it starts to all happen for you.
Nice. I love that. I like your perspective on this because you've kind of come from, again, you've gone through both kinds of transformation. So you have
Yeah.
an experience that not a lot of people have, but can impact a lot of people as well. So definitely appreciate you sharing all that with me. Now, last
Sure.
question is, again, I know you listen to the podcast, so you probably know what the question is. This is the Not So Stupid podcast, and we focus on simplicity. And I want to hear your opinion on what is one simple thing that anyone listening can start doing right after they uh, finish listening to the show that can dramatically improve their life. What would that be?
Movement every day. To make an effort to move every chance you get,
Mhm.
even if it's for 10 minutes, because those little compound things add up over time. And that neat activity, that little
Mhm.
bit of movement that you're doing, it makes a huge impact. So move as much as often and as much as you can.
Mhm. Nice. I like that. That's a really good one. And I like that you said it doesn't need to be a lot. It could be as little
No.
as 10 minutes.
Yeah, like everybody gets a lunch break, right? Just take
Mhm.
a 10-minute walk, 10 minutes. And I mean, seriously, that every single day can make a difference.
Yeah. It's better than not doing anything for that same amount of time every single day.
Exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rima, for your
You're welcome.
time and sharing your perspective. Definitely appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for listening to the show. We will see you guys on the next episode.